Okay. This is an interview with Margaret Hirsch for the Virginia Holocaust Museum, Richmond, Virginia. Today is October 10th, 2005. We are in the Virginia Holocaust Museum. The interviewer, I am Inga Horowitz, and videographer is Chuck Weitzenhofer. Mrs. Hirsch is accompanied today by her sons, Harry Hirsch and Jack Hirsch, Dr. Jack Hirsch, because recalling that period in her life that we will be discussing is difficult, and some support is helpful.
Yeah.
So your sons are here in the studio, but they will not participate. They're just here with you.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Could you please state your full name, including your maiden name, and give us the spelling, please?
Well, my maiden name is Bukowzer, and I spell it Bukofzer.
And your full name?
My phone is Margaret. Margaret, and usually called Gretel in German in the circles.
Mm-hmm. What is your place of birth?
Pardon?
Where were you born?
Oh, in Berlin.
And please give us your birth date.
It is January 23, 1917, in Berlin.
In Berlin. Mrs. Hirsch, what languages do you speak?
Well, I speak English a little, and German, and also learned French. Learned a little bit Hebrew, but certainly cannot speak it fluently.
Mm-hmm. Where were you living before 1933, when Hitler came to power?
In Berlin.
Your whole life
yes,
in Germany
I think
was
so.
in Berlin. And
of course, then I got married, and my husband, being a surgeon, lived at the Jewish hospital in Frankfurt am Main. We moved to Frankfurt am Main from Berlin.
After your marriage.
Yeah.
So let's figure when you were, if you were born in 1917, in 1933, you were 15 years old when Hitler came to power. You were a teenager.
Yes.
And you brought some photographs with you, and if we can zero in on the top two on the right and also the one on the left, this shows you as a young woman, and you told me the two postcards are Nazis lined up. Not in Berlin.
Oh.
What town is that?
Oh, that is my husband.
Oh, that was your husband's.
When he lost, could not work anymore in Berlin. Frankfurt am Main, the Jewish hospital in Frankfurt am Main, needed a surgeon badly, and we left Berlin.
I see.
For Frankfurt.
I understand that these photographs were made in the early 30s.
Yes.
Could you please describe your life before you were 15, 16, before Hitler came to power? What was your family, your home life like? Your family, describe it.
Well, I guess it was, I would call an average Jewish family, with grandpa and grandma and cousins and aunts and uncles and so on. It was a nice way of life in Berlin.
What was your father's business?
My father had a store a men's clothing store. And my mother worked in there too. Actually, they had 2 stores. And
The Bukowskers.
they had,
Did the
no,
store
it was called Metropole.
Metropole?
Yeah.
And so you were comfortable
Yeah.
as a child growing up.
Yes, yes.
Did you experience anti-Semitism in your childhood?
I don't think so.
Did you attend the public school?
Yes, yes. Completely normal, and we participated in everything.
Did you have non-Jewish friends?
Yes, yes.
And there was also, what was the religious observance in your
Well,
family?
we were conservative Jews. My father liked to go Friday night to the synagogue. One of the stores was a synagogue very close by. And I went to religious school and had my Jewish friends, but had also non-Jewish friends. We were all very compatible, as far as I remember.
How did your life then change?
Well, when Hitler came to power,
yes,
everything changed.
Can you tell us what happened and what you remember, how that changed?
Well, in Berlin you did not feel this very clearly, but slowly we realized that if Hitler is growing in power the way he did, there won't be any future in Germany. And especially it was important for the children to get out of Germany.
So what restrictions do you remember?
In Berlin was a metropolitan area. We had no restrictions, really.
You continued with your schooling?
Yes, yes. But when the order came out that Jews needed to wear noticeable little pins, then slowly it appeared that we just have no future, that we have to get out of that.
Was your father's business affected?
Yes, it was. Yeah. But the people, one store was in downtown in the factory area, and that had to be closed very quickly because these people were punished if they went into a Jewish store. And the uptown store was a little different customers. Many understood the situation and sometimes actually took chances to come into the store, but they said that they like what they have done all these years, and one man, Hitler, cannot change their life. Right. They also didn't realize that things are going to change.
Did you have household help? Did your mother?
Yes.
Were they Jewish or Gentile?
No, Margaret. She lived in and later on, when my parents couldn't afford her anymore, when she married, I sometimes called her and said, I would like to see you. And so she gave me a certain day and time when her mother wasn't there, because her mother should not know that a Jew is coming to see them. They would get into trouble. And so these people were restricted in many ways on account of Hitler.
Yes. Did that also occur with your non-Jewish friends? Were you able to maintain contact with?
Well,
Do you know?
some of them you could feel that they would rather not be friends anymore because they couldn't, but they also couldn't say that.
Mm-hmm.
It was very difficult because life just changed.
Yes, you felt it. When did you marry? What
Oh
was
boy,
the date?
I don't know the date.
What year or how old were you?
I
Approximately.
think I was about 20,
20.
or 19 or 20.
So that would have been 1936, 37?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It might be good to mention that my mother was very sick, gallbladder trouble, and she had to be taken to the Jewish hospital in the Iranischen Straße.
Mm-hmm.
And the main surgeon was Dr. Rosenstein, and all his interns were 5 or 6, all Jewish, and it was a very wonderful atmosphere, if you can say that about a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be interesting to know that when Professor Rosenstein made rounds, my mother had a picture of me on her night table. And one day, all the interns were standing around. Professor Rosenstein asked my mother who this young lady is, and she said, "This is my daughter."
Mm-hmm.
And he turned around to the Jewish interns and said, "Hirsch, Cohen," and run. And Hirsch, Kurt Hirsch, had called me, and well, we became very friendly and married after a while.
So that's how you
Yes.
met, through your...
Something good came out of something bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
And his name was...
Kurt Hirsch,
How do you spell Kurt?
K-U-R-T,
And how do you spell Hirsch?
H-I-R-S-C-H.
Okay. Where were you married?
We were married in Berlin in the most beautiful synagogue am Kurfürstendamm. And it was already forbidden to heat. Jewish people could not heat their houses anymore because they didn't get enough material. So this was in January, I think, yeah. And so the synagogue was full with nurses who had little white caps on, and it was a very wonderful atmosphere, and everybody was happy.
Was there heat in the synagogue?
No heat. No heat by that time.
Your homes were not heated?
No, could not be heated.
Winters are cold.
Yes, it was cold.
There. Mm-hmm.
Winters are cold.
You brought pictures, 2 pictures of a synagogue, your synagogue in Berlin.
Yeah.
And maybe we can zoom in on those. They're very small.
Yes.
Is this the synagogue where you were married?
I don't know which one.
It shows the bima.
No, this is a synagogue in Sparta where my husband used to live, hometown.
And his hometown was...
Sparta.
How do you spell this?
S-P-R-O-T-A. TTAU.
And that was
That is in Silesia.
Silesia, which is very near Poland, right?
Pardon?
Where is Silesia in
Well,
Germany?
Silesia is, I guess, more southern. It's, I don't know, it's near Breslau. Breslau is a very big city, and Sparta is a small town.
Yes, and Breslau is now part of Poland.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But so is Sparta.
So is Sparta.
Yes.
Tell me, so you were married before Kristallnacht, and you lived first in Berlin with your husband?
Yeah, yeah.
He was working,
Yes.
as you said, and then
the head of surgery, Dr. Landsberg, moved to America, left Germany from Frankfurt am Main, and my husband applied for this place, and we moved there to Frankfurt am Main.
I see.
And
where were you living on Kristallnacht, 1938?
Kristallnacht. I think it might have still been Berlin, I think, but I'm not sure.
Can you remember what happened to you?
Kristallnacht, well, we were very lucky because being in the hospital, you have kind of protection in many ways, because the poor people go hurt and cut up and needed help. Yeah.
You actually had a residence as part in the hospital?
Oh yes, yes. Our residence was in the hospital. In the hospital.
Which hospital?
Well, first in the Johannischen Straße in Berlin, and then in Frankfurt am Main. I don't know exactly, forgot the name, but yes. And when the Kristallnacht came and all these horrible things happening, many of these small town Jews came to the hospital to just stay at a safe place. And of course,
all around
the little towns
in the vicinity
with some of the Jews, yes.
Of Frankfurt?
Frankfurt am Main. Yes, then from there, when we were there, Hitler sent these people to concentration camps. They were all up called and to the hospital, and from the hospital were these transports to concentration camps. And I remember it was winter and very cold, and my husband had on a white uniform coming freshly out of the operating room, and he was with lots of people thrown into open trucks going to the concentration camp, and it was winter.
This happened to him on Kristallnacht? He was taken?
Around that time. I don't know if it was probably that's when it started. And I remember the boss, the chief of surgery, Dr. Mannheim, wore a hat, and my husband told me later on that he took off the hat and gave him the hat to protect his lungs on the open truck in the winter time. People had to stand for hours and do exercise day and night, or sometimes just stand there. And the injury was very severe.
How long was your husband gone?
Well, thank God, he was never gone very long. Maybe 2 nights, that was the most. Because the Nazis realized that if the Jews do not have a physician to keep healthy or be taken care of, it could endanger everybody. So
So he was released?
always released, yeah, while others were kept. Yes, yes.
Do you remember where he was taken?
Well, in Frankfurt, it was a large concentration camp. I don't know. I do not know.
Do you know what happened to your parents on
My
Kristallnacht?
parents,
On Kristallnacht.
yes, my parents, well, of course, living in Berlin, and in a big apartment house with a lot of Jews around. There was a certain safety, I can't use the word safety, but one felt that a little bit more safe there. And my father was in the First World War, and that was in his record. The Nazis had excellent records. Everything was black and white. And there it was that my grandfather, too, had been in the service. And we felt that on account of that he did not have to go to the concentration camp. But I'm not sure if that's the way it was.
So living in Berlin still, were your parents and their parents were living?
No, their parents were gone by then, yeah.
And do you remember what you did when this all happened? What did you
Well,
witness?
my dear, there is a certain danger is very, very bad. And you do what you have to do. We just tried to help wherever we could. And sometimes when people were picked up and left in homes alone without a husband or father, they came into the hospital to stay there because it was more safer. And I do remember one night where the hospital was completely filled up with people like that from the surrounding areas. And we had a sofa, an empty sofa upstairs in our apartment. So in the middle of the night, my husband came up and brought a little girl who was sleeping on a chair somewhere, or probably on the floor, and put her into this. Made a little bed for her, and we had this little girl for about 10 days, more or less adored her, and she was very grateful, but she wanted to go home.
Of course.
Yeah.
Did you witness any plundering, stealing? What was going on in the streets that could you see?
The hospital was always in Berlin and in Frankfurt, far out, so it was a little bit protected. But yes, of course, we ourselves had to take a streetcar sometimes walk. I was not able to drive. And yes, it became very, very tough.
How did life change for you then?
Very much, yes.
Did you
Yes,
have
at that time we were concerned. We wanted to get out and we wanted to find a way for our people to help them out.
Mm-hmm. How did you think you would be able to leave?
Well, we got an affidavit. My husband had a cousin in Manchester, and he gave us, my husband and for me, an affidavit to come to Manchester, England, where my husband worked in a...
Well, let's not go there yet. You're not there yet.
Yeah.
When you were still in the hospital and after Kristallnacht, was there food? Was food available?
The hospital was a certain safer place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that many people had a lot of trouble finding food and medicine.
Did you have access to newspapers?
Yeah, yes.
So
yes, we were informed. Yes.
And you saw what was happening.
Yes. But we couldn't get out. It was very difficult to get out by then.
Do you remember any acts of mercy or heroism or kindness?
Well, there was a lot of that, because people, just Gentile people talking to old Jewish friends was already against the golden rule then. Should not do it, but many people did. And I remember one incident in the hospital in Frankfurt am Main, where I received a letter from he was a first engineer in the hospital, a Gentile man, and evidently also anti-Semitic. He wrote to me that he wants to see me at a certain time, at a certain hour and place, because he knows that I have a friendship with one of the doctors. Of course, that was blackmail, because I didn't have that. And I went to our administrator and showed him the letter, and he came with me on that day and time. And when we opened the door where the man was staying, the man took off his hat and said hello and walked away. But if he would not, if the administrator wouldn't have been with me, I don't want to even think what would have happened to me. So it became really time to leave.
Yes. Was the administrator Jewish?
No.
No.
Oh, the administrator?
Yes.
I don't think he was Jewish. I don't think he was Jewish.
So there was a bit of heroism.
So that was...
So you were able to escape and get to England, you and your husband.
Yes, yeah. Now, my husband went first.
He went first?
Oh, yes. I mean, the men had to get out as fast as possible. It was, with women, it was still not so bad. Yes. My husband worked in a factory. I don't know what kind of it was. We lived in Manchester because he had a cousin there and his wife who let him come over to Manchester, England. And he worked in this factory it was blackout in England because the Germans were flying around finding things to bomb. Manchester had a lot of industry.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a bicycle, and every morning it was dark. In the winter time, of course, 15 or 20 bicyclists would follow one bus down into the area where the factories were.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was pretty hard in Manchester.
Go ahead.
We were safe.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when your husband left, and then when
from Manchester
from Germany to Manchester?
Oh, no, I don't remember that.
The year?
It was as soon as we could from Frankfurt am Main.
After Kristallnacht?
As soon, yeah. The affidavit was sent by his cousin in Manchester.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we got that.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of it, I became pregnant, which made things kind of difficult too. But I had a job in Manchester, and we were hoping to get to the United States.
What kind of work did he do there?
In Manchester?
Yes.
I was a nurse. I was did everything what came up. Housework, take care of children, anything.
And
then I did get a job in a factory which made uniforms, soldier uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
The owner was a Jew, and we were about a dozen Jewish women who were taught to run these big power machines.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you something funny. One day, the two big, or even three big trucks came and packed where all the pens we had sewn. Now, pens are very difficult because you have to put in this square that you can move. And so that was very hard for us to do, and we were paid by piecework, so you had to do fast in order to get paid. Mm-hmm. But anyhow, we were about 8 or 10 people from Berlin, or an area, and we had made these. Whenever it didn't fit right in, we would just cut it off and sew it together. So these poor soldiers were not able to use these pens.
Oh,
and piles and piles of these pens were rolling off the trucks, and the owner, a Jewish man, and his sons, 2 sons, they had big red heads, but it was really, if it wouldn't have been so sad, it would have been funny.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we were forgiven, and when we left Manchester, the foreman came out with me, and she took me into her arms and cried with me and said she's so happy that we get out to America. They were very, very good. Many, many people were very, very good to us.
In England, and then you had an opportunity to come to America.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Earlier, I will interject that Harry told me your husband had gotten out about 10 months after Kristallnacht in September 1939, or just about that time.
Yeah.
And you followed. And do you remember when you came to America?
Yes, we were followed in front of us and in back of us U-boats for protection because we had all the gold on board from England, and whatever was there on gold, they wanted to take to America. So we were very protected, but I was awfully seasick, and I was already pregnant and could not tell anybody because I didn't have an affidavit for this baby.
Oh.
So it was very tough, very, very tough.
Do you remember when you arrived in America?
Yes, we arrived in New York and had big suitcases, and I do remember going to the subway. We were asking for the subway because we had no money for anything. And as we were crossing the street to go there, a big Cadillac stopped, and a black shiny Cadillac, and the man opened the window and said, "Let me give you a ride." Well, this was very tempting, but coming into a new country and not knowing the language really, we were afraid. We took the subway and came to my husband's uncle and aunt, and when they opened the door, they said, "Happy birthday, Kurt." That was the birthday. It was June 24th, my husband's birthday, when we arrived in America.
June 24th, and what year?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think Harry said it was 1940.
Okay, that's probably
So
right.
the war
Yes.
was on.
Yeah.
What was the gold you mentioned? Whose gold was on that ship?
Who-
Your own valuables?
Oh yeah, but we did not, at that time we did not have much. Gold from all the countries who wanted to, you see, world war was exploding in
Yes.
Europe, so they wanted to get rid of the gold
I
to
see.
safety.
Mhm.
Yes.
So this ship carried some of that. How many?
Yeah, but
Were
what?
there many refugees on
Oh,
the
yes.
ship too?
Yes.
Under what flag? Do you know what country this ship?
I don't know. It was probably English
Mhm.
because we came from England.
Mhm.
Yes.
So the
And I, one more woman and then we were pregnant. Everybody else was just happy-go-lucky, but I was seasick.
So you made it to America.
Yeah.
What happened to your parents in
To what?
Berlin? To your parents then? Your parents were still in Berlin.
Oh yes. Well, of course, we wanted to get them out as soon as possible, and it just didn't work. We just couldn't manage it. But at that time, it was very difficult to leave already Germany.
Right.
And my parents were sent to a concentration camp in Poland, Piaski, near Lublin.
Yes.
And my father died there in a hospital, evidently, because my mother wrote to me that when she got there in the morning, he was already gone. And the rest of the family also, some of them stayed in Berlin, and some of them went go to the concentration camp and died there.
Mm-hmm. you had brothers and sisters?
No, I'm an only
You're
child.
an only child. So
Yeah.
who was the rest of your family
Who was?
that did not get out?
Most of them did not get out.
Who were?
Because,
who
well,
was
my
in-
mother's sister and some other relatives, uncles and aunts, and it was very difficult
Right.
to get out for older people.
Right.
It was difficult enough for young people.
Mm-hmm. Did you have contact with your mother and with your parents?
I had
in England?
my parents knew that we were in America,
Mm-hmm.
and that I could tell by my father's handwriting that he had hope,
Mm-hmm.
because you could he was really happy.
That you were able.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
But then it just didn't work out that way.
You brought with you a folder of letters that your parents were still writing.
Yeah.
Mostly your mother,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yes, they corresponded with my aunt in Berlin and also with a friend of my husband in Switzerland.
From concentration camp?
Yeah. And in fact, the friend in Switzerland was able to send them $10 once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course, gave them hope, and it gave us hope.
Mm-hmm. Was this a labor camp? Do you know what was going on in it? Could they
No.
write what life
No.
was like?
No,
No.
no.
We have here on the bulletin board a sample of one of this packet of letters written on onion skin paper that's torn at the bottom, and she signs it there. It looks like more like a scrap of paper than a sheet of paper,
Yeah, yeah.
and the date is 1941.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know when they perished? Do you know, and did you get any notification
No,
later?
no, not official.
Mhm.
My aunt in Berlin, she had a daughter, a 17-year-old daughter, who had been taken away from her. She had a Red Cross message that my father died, I think. And I don't know if she also got I think that was all. I don't know how I heard about my mother. I don't know.
No. So we have you now in America. Let's go back. I'd like to know a little bit about your husband's family.
Yeah.
You were an only child,
Yeah.
and you were a conservative
Yeah.
Jewish persuasion.
Yes.
He came from a smaller town.
Yeah.
And what was his family like? Just
Well,
briefly.
his family, they were very observant Jews. They had 3 daughters
Mhm.
who were all either doctors. One was a doctor, one was a dentist, one was a Hebamme,
A midwife.
a midwife, thank you. And my parents packed a very big lift, taking actually some furniture of ours in the lift for Palestine.
Your parents.
No, my
His
parents-in-law, yeah,
Mhm.
from Sparta, and going to one of their daughters in Israel,
Mhm.
but it never arrived. And the girls, the midwife became, she was a doctor actually, Also she was a doctor, but she became a midwife in Israel. And Hannah was also a doctor, and she became a dentist, I think. And then the younger one, France, was also finished also medicine, I believe. And I don't know exactly what she...
So they survived.
Yeah.
The sisters, as
Yes.
well as of course, your husband.
Yeah.
What happened to his parents?
To the parents?
Yes.
Well, they, after they all left, they had their paper came to come to Israel. And my father-in-law had an old sister who was waiting for her affidavit to come to Israel because she was sick and all, and she was waiting for that. So my father-in-law, in spite of having all the papers ready to go for them, for him and for his wife, Rushka was her name.
The sisters.
He could not leave until Rushka left the country. So finally Rushka left for Israel, but my parents-in-law were picked up in Berlin on their way, evidently, to go to Israel, and disappeared completely.
And they perished.
Yeah, they died. Somewhere without, we could not find anywhere to, nothing, just disappeared.
Without a trace.
Yeah.
There is a picture on the bulletin board right in the middle of your husband's family. His parents, and he in the middle in the back, and his three sisters.
Yes.
Yes. This was before that time.
Oh yes.
Well,
Well,
they survived.
He was a very Orthodox Jew. He was very much interested in the education of the Jewish children in Spotau, which is a very small town. He let somebody from Breslau, a larger town, a teacher come and have to teach the children Hebrew. And he took care of the synagogue.
This is the father.
The father. He took care of the synagogue, and he was very much liked in Spotau. Both of them actually were very much liked. And disappeared.
They disappeared.
Completely disappeared.
In that town.
In that town.
They stayed there
Yeah.
until they
Yeah.
disappeared.
Because they were on their way to go to Israel when they came over Berlin, and in Berlin they were sent back to
I
Spotau,
see.
and then they disappeared.
How sad. Now, his sisters have ended up in other places
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
You came to America.
One daughter, yes, is in California,
Also here in
and
this country.
yes, and the others three are in Israel.
The other two.
Yeah, two. That's right. I'm sorry. One is a midwife, and the other one is I don't know what she became.
And
Dentist.
And like you, they've married, they've had children.
Yes. Right.
When you first came here to this country, you knew a little bit of English?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And where did you live to begin with?
Well, first we were in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and then we went to, I think, to Franklin. No? Let's see.
To Norfolk.
Norfolk? Oh, yeah. That's right. Norfolk, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my husband had an internship there. And
You had to first qualify, I would think, to practice medicine here.
well, yeah. But I mean, as a he was an intern
Right.
at,
In
you
Norfolk.
know how you can forget all that. But anyhow, we were at Vincent de Paul Hospital on Church Street. That's where it was. And we stayed there, intern and residency.
Had to do
And
a
then we
residency.
went, as foreign graduate, we were not able to be as free and wanting to move here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an opening in Draper, Virginia. That's up in the
Draper,
mountains.
Up
Yeah,
in the mountains, yeah.
that's where we were, and he did everything there, and I must say I also was his right hand. We didn't. He delivered babies and all up in the mountains
In
where
Draper,
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And we didn't have a sterilizer, so I had to sterilize all the diapers and all this. It was just so funny. We had a good time doing that.
Yes.
And then from there, they heard about my husband. My husband, I have to say, was a very good surgeon. And his name had, from Norfolk in the area, had attracted some of the people. So Franklin had it was wartime and needed a surgeon badly. So they came up to Draper and got us. We moved to Franklin, Virginia.
And Franklin is near
It's near Suffolk.
Suffolk.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. In the
And
Tidewater.
yes, it was very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband worked day and night. He was so happy to be able to do surgery again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Were you a nurse? Did you study nursing?
excuse me, I have a
You have
cramp.
to stand up.
Yeah,
Oh
cramp.
dear. You have a cramp in your foot or your leg.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We might have to stop this now.
Shall we stop for just a minute?
Yes,
while
I wish
walk
you would.
around? I
Yeah.
think so. I know what that is like.
I should have moved.
I'll wait to hear from you.
I don't want to tie it.
I wouldn't have done this.
I do brush
No,
you.
My
he's not
posterity.
going
I
to
don't
take
think
it.
he's
Wait a minute. It's going to take 20 seconds to stop and start. You have to wait.
gonna- Okay. Chuck is
think
a
we're frustrating
volunteer.
Chuck. No, I'm just hoping it starts up in the same place.
Many of us here are volunteers. He's here almost every day.
Pardon?
Chuck is here almost.
Take one, take three.
You
Well,
did very well. Yes.
You're on.
Okay. This is a continuation of an interview with Margaret Hirsch at the Virginia Holocaust Museum on October 10th, and she has now been joined by her sons who were present in the room before, but because we've reached America in her story, and they were born in America.
Yes.
So we'll pick up there. Where was your first, Jack, the oldest son born?
My first what?
Your first son was born where?
Oh, in Norfolk,
In Norfolk?
at Vincent de Paul Hospital on Church Street.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it was actually a big party because I believe Norfolk did not have that many Jewish people, and we had a
bris?
yeah, a bris, and all the doctors came, and it was very nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your
then,
second son? Go
pardon?
ahead.
After that, we went to Franklin, Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
and it was wartime, and all the surgeons were gone, and Dr. Rayford, the owner of the hospital, tried to run it, and it was very, very difficult. So my husband came into this area, and he was just made for it because he loved to do surgery, and I hardly ever saw him. He was in surgery day and night for years,
It was
I
a
think.
civilian hospital.
Yeah, yeah.
And where was your second son born?
Pardon?
Where was Harry born?
Harry was born in Franklin.
In Franklin.
And we had a very nice life.
Mm-hmm.
If we ever saw my husband,
Yes.
he was
You
just
became
completely taken up.
involved in the Jewish community?
Yeah, small Jewish community.
Mhm.
And the children, as they got older, we belonged to a synagogue in Suffolk,
Mhm.
Agudas Achim
Mhm.
synagogue. And the children went to Cheder twice a week,
Mhm.
and then on Sunday to Sunday school, or we were members in Portsmouth at the synagogue there too. And
Have you continued, and has your family continued the Jewish traditions?
yes, we tried to raise Jewish people,
Yes.
and I think we succeeded
Good.
because life shows that it was good. Yeah.
Mrs. Hirsch, did you tell others about your experiences in Europe when you first came? How did you handle your past?
Talk about our life?
Yes.
No, I did not do. Did not. I was very, I lost my parents, and we had, there was a lot of work to be done in Franklin, and children have to go out of town 3 times a week,
Mhm.
and
When
we're
did,
busy.
when did you begin to talk about that time in Europe?
When did I begin to talk about it?
Yes.
I think I didn't.
You didn't.
I really didn't. I was so busy.
Right.
Uh,
What have you told your family, your children? I presume you have grandchildren who you
Yes.
haven't learned yet.
yes.
What have you told them?
Pardon?
What have you shared with them about their grandparents and your life?
Well, very little, because they are now having their own babies, and they're very busy. But I think so up and on the holidays, especially like Hanukkah, and so we try to teach them, and I think they might have gotten a nice impression of our way of life.
Mm-hmm. Have you been able to separate your feelings for Nazis from your feelings about the German people?
Well, I think I have, because Germany, it was a good life before Hitler came, and we were very happy. I mean, we had a good Jewish life there. We had more or less everything we needed and enjoyed a good life.
Mm-hmm.
No, yes, I am bitter, of course, because you can't help if your people are getting killed.
Mm. Yes.
But Germany, when I grew up in Germany, it was a good life.
Yes. What one lesson do you think we should learn from remembering the Holocaust?
That's a very good question and very hard to answer. It is most important, I think, that we teach our children Judaism, not just book Judaism, but the way of life, that they get the feeling of belonging, because we lost our sense of belonging in Germany. This was taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important that we have this, and we do have it, thank God, in America.
Right. Your sense of belonging is illustrated by this family tree that's here on the easel now. This is the family tree of your husband,
Yes.
which goes back to 1783
83.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
in this place.
Yes. Yes.
That's a deep belonging.
Yeah.
So how would you say the Holocaust changed your life and his life?
His life?
No, you and your husband.
Well,
your
of
life.
course it changed. We had to start all over again in a foreign country, and we lost a lot of our people.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it changed us tremendously. We might be a little bit more careful of being together and knowing more Jewish customs and know more Judaism. That is very important, even here in America, where we have so much freedom.
Do you see any dangers in America that something similar could happen here?
Well, I would like to say it couldn't, but it's amazing how things can change. I think we have to be observant. We have to watch out and be good Americans.
Yes. How do you answer people who say this never happened?
Pardon?
How do you answer people who say this never happened?
Well, I tell them it has happened. Just look at me and see what happened to our family. A big, happy, bursting family. Of course, now Germany was in wartime before Hitler. You know, there were wars.
Yes, the First World War.
Yes.
Do you have any last memory that you would like to share?
I would love to do that.
For your grandchildren, how many have you?
I have, let me see quickly. I have 5 grandchildren. Yes.
And
And they have children now?
And they have children, yes. They have...
How many great-grandchildren?
7.
A little coaching here.
Yeah,
7, right.
yes.
What would you like them to understand about you and your experience and your life?
Yes. I hope and wish that they will learn from what we went through. It's a little early for them to hear about it, but I think they know the importance of family life, and that everybody in the family has a certain obligation to do things for each other.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
I think they do that. I'm looking at my sons.
Yes, I think we should look at your sons if we haven't already. Your youngest son is next to you.
Yes.
Harry Hirsch.
Harry.
And Harry is
Pardon?
what does Harry do?
Harry is a lawyer.
thank you.
And besides that, he is a very good and cheerful and very good human being.
Thank you.
Yes.
He's in line for the presidency at the synagogue one of these times. He's
Yes.
the vice president, yes.
Yes.
So he's
Yeah, I'm very proud of him.
heard you.
Yes.
And your
And
oldest
Jacques, of course, is the older one, and has been very close in many ways to help, and he is a wonderful doctor, from what I hear his patients say. He has a good sense of humor and the heart at the right spot.
And he
and,
lives where?
Pardon?
Jack lives where?
Jack lives in
Charlottesville.
Charlottesville.
So
Yeah.
both of them, Harry and Richmond,
Yeah.
are nearby.
Right.
Thank you so very much for this interview.
Thank
Very
you.
important.
I hope that other families have a chance to tell, because it is very important that we who have been successful in raising our children the way we hope and wish, that other people have that chance too.
Mhm. Yes.
If you
And
want
I-
to hear if you want to hear a
good
post,
example.
if you want to hear a postscript irony,
Okay.
one of Mama's grandchildren was born in Frankfurt am Main.
Oh, really?
What was the one?
Dora was
Yeah.
born in Frankfurt.
That's right.
The city you
Yeah.
escaped.
Yeah.
Mhm. It's a small world.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It was lovely.
Good.
And I hope I did a little bit what I could do.
Yes. Yes. We knew you could.
Did very well.
We knew you